Welcome to Fading Memories, a podcast with advice, wisdom, and hope from caregivers who have lived the experience and survived to tell the tale. Think of us as your caregiver best friend. Thanks for joining us, listeners. I always appreciate you giving us some of your time. Today, we're talking to Dara Ray. She is with My Data Diary, and it is a personal information management software, not system.
Correct.
I kept
Correct.
trying to screw that up the other day. So thanks for joining me, Dara.
Thank you so much for having me today, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to join you.
Thank you. So why don't you tell us about My Data Diary, and then why you're a part of this company and
Sure.
why other people should be interested. For the YouTube viewers, this is the special little tool that everybody needs. And I'm going to tell my story once we get to that part. So, what is My Data Diary?
Well, My Data Diary is a software solution designed for families to help manage the business of life. Everything from personal, household, passwords, financial, health, legal, and legacy information and documents. We've created a place for everything and everything in one place. And when you ask why, what is it? It really comes down to the why it is and why I created it. And so I'll just share a bit of a story of my personal journey to needing something for my family. And when I couldn't find a solution that met my needs, creating something that would work for me and for my clients. So I call myself an accidental consultant and had been helping families navigate kind of the business side of care, not the health side, because they could find help with health matters and caring for a loved one through a hospital or a doctor's office. And while not perfect, there tended to be help there. But when it came time for a family member to step in to help manage the business side of life and start helping with managing a household and paying bills and maybe helping with some of the healthcare bills and more of the business side of care, it started to become very apparent that you really needed to have documents and you really needed to have information. And we all have a lifetime of documents, information scattered hither and yon, and gathering them and having them in one place for multiple people to assist. Because oftentimes it's not like I'm going to wholesale take stuff from you, but rather let me help, right? Let me help you do some things. And so I was helping families think about this. What kind of organization systems did they need? What kind of documents should they be gathering? How they could help one another? Oftentimes working with both a senior couple or individual and an adult child, often the daughter, right? Trying to figure out this transition. Well, while I am here helping families do this, I am living my own caregiver journey. And my family and I had moved, my husband and my son and I at the time had moved to Idaho in 2001 after my father-in-law had a massive heart attack. And we became what I call an activated family. You have that moment of clarity where you either have a major medical emergency or you get a diagnosis and somebody said, it's really time to get your ducks in a row, or it's really time to put your affairs in order. And we became that activated family in 2001. And we moved here so that we could help them, so that our kids could have grandparents. And we got all of the information and documents together. The healthcare power of attorney was put in place, and the wills, and we did what we should have done in 2001. He was given 5 to 10 years to live, and so really we transitioned everything to my mother-in-law, take stress off of him, and we were just here to help. Well, 5 years passed and he was still alive, and we were ever so grateful. And 10 years passed, and now we were like living on borrowed time and felt really lucky. And 17 years after we were told to put our affairs in order, we never imagined he would walk into the major university arena here in Boise and watch my now 18-year-old son, who was a year old when we moved here, graduate from high school. I mean, it was a moment of joy as a family to think that he saw this day. And 6 months after that, my mother-in-law contracted the flu and died 5 days later.
Oh my. There's a
And we
PSA
were,
for getting a flu shot.
indeed, we were completely unprepared for her to go. We were blinded by our own expectation bias. We had prepared as a family for what we thought we needed to do for him, but we hadn't updated anything in 16 years. And what, because we did it when we were supposed to and we didn't think about it. And I was blinded by my expectation bias and belief that my mother-in-law had it all under control. And while here I was helping other families do this and kind of got blindsided in my own family. And so, like any good business person, I'm like, what happened here? I need to figure out, what's the post-mortem of this horrible drama that pursues 3 months of
Ugh.
chasing papers and having to transition. We didn't spend the last 5 days of her life just holding her hand, but rather we were scrambling to find her healthcare power of attorney. We were scrambling to find the will. We were scrambling to put a power of attorney in place for my father-in-law, who just did not feel at all able to step in and handle his own household affairs. And we spent time in the last 5 days of her life that I wish we could get back, and we could have spent just loving on her and being as a family. And we did that, but we were distracted. We were distracted by things that I wish we hadn't been. And then it took 3 months for my husband to get everything taken care of and to get all of the accounts transferred and even to figure out where they were and who
Ooh.
he needed to talk to. And 3 months after she passed, my husband looked at me in the kitchen and said, "When do I get to be sad?" And it just broke my heart because it was preventable. Had we had the information, had we had the documents, it wouldn't have been seamless, but it would have been so much better. And so I set out on a journey. I was going to go find a software solution because I wanted it to be digital. We have entered a digital universe and the world is moving digital. And if we don't move with it, we're going to risk being left analog refugees in a digital world. So I totally needed a digital solution and I needed it to be mobile and secure and easy to update and easy to share. And I wanted it to be affordable because, after all, it was just for me and my family. And candidly, Jennifer, when I couldn't find something, I created it. And that's how my data diary was born. And I hope that my experiences and my learnings help other people do better than I did and help me do better next time and empower people to really have the data and information that they need at their fingertips to care for themselves and their family members.
See, I was lucky with my dad when he ended up on hospice, actually slightly before, but my husband and I and my dad have all been Rotarians, which is an international service organization. My husband having been in banking for 20 years, my sister and I are like, what do we do with dad? And then
Yeah.
mom's got Alzheimer's and whoa, we were dealing with them. Like the house probably could have burned down before we were like, oh, wait, we have to focus on this too. My husband went to my dad's financial planner and said, bills still got to get paid. Thankfully, the house was paid for. Because this happened between the end of November and January 2016 into 2017. So the property taxes got paid, I think. Now that it's been a little while, but
Yeah.
it's like you don't think about property taxes when your dad ends up in the hospital for 32 days, or your dad is on hospice, your mom's got advanced Alzheimer's, you're dealing with managing caregiving staff, or
Yep.
you're with them 24/7. Like property taxes, they can
Yep.
just wait. But the government doesn't think that way. So,
It
they get
just
a little
creates a
pissed.
headache later, right? It
Exactly.
creates a drama that you have to manage. And whether it's end of life or an episode during life or something that has come up, there are times in our lives when we need help and we need our documents and information.
Well, and it's really easy to procrastinate. So you said you hadn't updated the information, the documents in
Yep.
16 years, which is a little you were very confident about what you did 16 years
Well, I
prior.
thought my mother-in-law had, right? And we
Ah,
didn't keep it as as an ongoing conversation. And so part of this is building that muscle as a family to have that update conversation. And so when people start using my data diary, it is an investment of time to get your information in there. But once you have it in there, we really encourage you to update it right after you do your taxes every year, where you have all of your documents, you've just completed all of that, and anything that you might need to update, we're like, just put it in a pile, and at least once a year, make sure that you put new documents in there, you put new information in there, you update anything that needs updated. And for our users who really use it to help them manage the business of life, because this isn't just about caring for someone else in end of life, but password management and electronic documents to enroll kids in school and all of these things that we now need electronic digital documents for. I actually tell people, whatever your month end process is to pay your bills or whatever, you just add a step to it, and there's a pile of things that need to be uploaded or modified in my data diary. And so it's about new habits, and it's about creating that discipline monthly and annually to just make sure that the core information in there is correct.
And unfortunately, even though we have a digital society, before we went to record, I was telling Dara my family drama story of my husband being in the hospital. Thankfully, he's fine. No, nothing to worry about, thankfully. But they gave him his flu shot. I think he said they were going to give him his flu shot. And then they said, "Oh, we don't need to give you your COVID booster. You've already had one." And he said, "No, I've only had one." And they're like, "Really?" And okay, the man is in the hospital of the healthcare system, healthcare loose terms. Like, you have a computer right there. You can't pull this man's records up. He has his vaccination card on his phone. He's showing you what the reality is.
Yeah.
And they're like, ugh. I mean, literally, it was the stupidest thing. It's like, I know our records are up to date for our COVID vaccines and boosters, because I had to show it to him to go into the hospital.
Yeah.
Going into the hospital right now feels still like 2020. I think it's
Yeah, it
terrible.
does.
But
Well, and
it's
it's
like,
one of those things, you have digital and you have paper, and we're going to need to live with both and be prepared to live in both for a while. And I tell people and my clients as I am explaining this, I tell them it's kind of like the way I used to talk to my children about their grades in middle school, right? And they would get very frustrated when a teacher forgot to record a grade or lost an assignment or recorded the incorrect grade, and they were very developmentally they were very upset because they did what they were supposed to do and the teacher didn't do what the teacher was supposed to do. And I had to remind them that their grades were never going to be more important to anyone but them. And it was real. And so extrapolate your healthcare records, your financial records, your information will never be as important to anyone else as it is to you. And as we are engaging with these, in my kids' case, middle school teachers that had 180 students every day, or in the case of a doctor's office, an office staff that manages 600 patients a year, or whatever the case may be, you will be able to more effectively manage and control your information than they will. And so it's really a good way for you to make sure that your information is up to date and it is accurate and it hasn't missed a connection somewhere in the digital universe. I believe we should take responsibility for our own information and not rely on other systems because they're not perfect still.
no, not at all. And I, being a avid podcast listener, just there's a podcast called .com, and they're doing a series on hacking. And I guess the Irish National Health System got the ransomware hack, and they have a maternity hospital, biggest maternity hospital in Ireland. I forgot how many they get, like, I don't know, 60 or 80 babies a day. It's a lot. It might be
Wow.
600, but I don't think it's quite that many. It's a lot. And they
Yeah.
literally had to go. I mean, somebody logged into their computer, couldn't access data, called the tech guy. The tech guy could access pieces, parts, but not all of it. And he's like, something's wrong
Something's
here.
wrong.
And so he immediately told everybody, turn off all the computers, don't log into anything, don't do anything. And so part of the story is the older administrators and nurses and doctors and stuff who had transitioned into fully digital were like, okay, this is how we used to do things. The younger staff were like, there was an example of having to record the baby's heart rate or something. Okay, so it's whatever 110 over 80 or whatever. I'm not a
Yeah.
doctor. I don't even know if
Yeah.
that's logical. And but they had to describe it and she said, "Oh, the baby's heart is strong, it's beating, it's perfect." I don't know what to write in the chart, which is really kind of annoying. But
Yeah.
it's just like we don't think about these things. But when you say so it's like, yeah, the doctor's office should have had my husband's COVID record. They
Yeah.
did have them. I don't know what the hell was going on in the ER, but whatever.
Yeah.
And this hospital is super crammed and, just
Well, and
a
a
lot of
lot of
annoying
times,
things.
a lot of times the systems don't even talk to each other. And so that's what back to my story with my mother-in-law, part of the reason we didn't have her healthcare power of attorney is we knew that it had been uploaded into the health system's records. And so I knew she had taken it to her doctor's office and they had uploaded it into their system. Well, what we didn't realize, she lives about an hour and a half. They lived about an hour and a half from
Ooh,
us, same health system, but they had different instances of Epic, which is the electronic health record system. And the Western Idaho system didn't talk to the Boise system.
oh
And so
Lord.
while it was in their system, they couldn't pull it up when she got transitioned to our hospital. And so it's a dichotomy of where we are with both the need to access information, but also, as you were talking about with ransomware, the importance of keeping it secure. And so, one of the things that we designed in our solution is for my clients and myself, candidly, I'm just not prepared to put all of my information and all of the keys to my kingdom on the internet behind one password on somebody else's server. And so I needed a solution that I could keep more secure. And so our solution, while digital, is not connected to the internet, and you control the security to your level of comfort based on choices you make. But it runs independently off of a USB drive that is encrypted with your own password, and you control how and where you share that information. And coming back to how much information could there be and how complicated could it be, going back to that healthcare example of they didn't have the COVID record. I don't know what the health system's like where you are, but I was just referring to one health system. But we have multiple health systems here in Boise. And for my little family of five, which is myself, my husband, my kids, and my father-in-law, who we manage his care, we have 16 electronic health record log
Jesus.
on password combinations that we have to manage because this health system and that health system have different ones, and the private health system has another one, and this doctor's not affiliated, so they have a different one, and the dentist has a different one, and the eye doctor has a different one. And I mean, that was the last time I checked, it was 16. It could be
Oh,
more at this point,
jeez.
but the last time I counted, I don't want to have to keep track of that in my head. I need to write it down somewhere, and I put it all in the tool.
That makes sense. Okay, I have to file a complaint here because you said
Okay,
we need to
complain
keep
away.
paper versions and digital versions. I graduated from high school in 1984. We were promised a 4-day work week and a paperless office. Hello, that was 1984. This is the end of September of 2022. Like
Yeah.
when?
Well, I don't know that I can ever promise you that 4-day work week because the darn hybrid work world has just totally blurred the lines and we all work all the time. But as far as the paper goes, I think we are moving toward digital. There are certain things that you will always likely need to have a paper copy, at least in my lifetime. Perhaps, at some point we won't. We're definitely generating less printed documents, but it's not going to go away. And needing access to your information, some people are like, well, they won't even do that kind of a transaction without like a financial transaction. They'll require an original of a title, an original of a birth certificate or proof of information. And you'll still need to provide those. But what we've discovered is that very often, if not the majority of the time, you can produce an electronic version for them to process and move things forward. And only at closing do you need to produce the official document. And so you can actually add a lot of efficiency to your personal business management. But complaint lodged, I registered. um, I think we've got a ways to go, and I'm not sure it'll ever completely go away.
It's like only almost 40 years later.
Yeah.
It's funny. So one of the things that I can see, I am a very organized, very efficient person, because that way I get to do all the extra things I like to do. So I can in my mind hear people going, "Oh Lord, I really don't want to add another thing to my to-do list." Let me explain why you do want to do that. Reducing frustrations, like when your mother-in-law was in the hospital, or when my husband's in the hospital and they're telling him they can't give him a COVID booster because he's already had one, which he hasn't had one since the beginning of the year. And, so we need the Omicron version. It's like, whatever, all that insanity. It's just super frustrating. It's just, stress is bad for our brains. We don't need to we need to keep as much stress out as possible. So to kind of wind this down, I will tell the story of why this is a really good tool to avoid frustration. So after my father died, I called up AT&T, of which he was a retiree, and explained to them that I needed to cancel his iPhone because he had passed away. Now, prior to the phone call, being an efficient, logical person, even though I was dealing with losing my dad and having to deal with my mom who had advanced Alzheimer's and my sister who we have an estranged relationship. So there's all that emotional drama going on. I made sure that I had an electronic copy of his death certificate because, logic says they're not going to just believe some random person on the phone canceling somebody else's cell phone, right? They said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Do you have his PIN?" "No, I'm sorry, I do not. I can give you a few ideas of what it might be, but I just guessing." "Oh, okay." Then we go through a few more steps. Long story short, I, honest to God, had to tell these people 5 times they could not produce the information they wanted because he was dead. Dealing with emotional stuff and having to tell them 5 times, "Cannot give you his PIN because he is dead," was not a very pleasant experience. And they're very lucky that I'm I immediately get very stressed and irritated. So I wasn't in the crying kind of emotion. I was more in the
Frustrated.
emotion of,
Yeah.
it's a very good thing your corporate office isn't close by because I'd probably come down there and smack somebody around. But it's just like the whole thing. I mean, it still irritates me and it's been over 5 years.
Well,
I
and it
mean,
just goes to our belief that having the right information in the right place and at the right time will save you time. It will save you money. Lots of examples of how that can happen. It will save you tons of frustration that you just explained. And depending on the information, it could save someone's life, right? Whether it's
mhm.
an allergy or a medication type information. And so our goal is to help you with that personally with a solution that's designed for the family by family caregivers who have walked this journey, and to provide you with a place for everything so you truly can have everything in one place.
Well, that's a perfect place to end, other than thanking you and reminding the listeners that the link to my data diary is in the show notes and on my website. And we have given you plenty of reasons why you need to go check this out. It is extremely affordable. It's $50. And if you value your sanity, that is pennies per frustration. Let's
Well,
put it
and don't
that way.
forget the discount code that we've offered for your listeners.
That's right.
Fading Memories discount code will get you 15% off that $50 price tag.
So see, even fewer pennies per frustration say.
I like that. Pennies per frustration, a new metric for me, Jennifer.
There you go. Well, it's like time is money, but sometimes just not having to deal with something unpleasant. Like, how many times would we'd probably pay a pretty penny to like not deal with hospital drama, doctor drama. Lord knows we don't want to deal with attorneys. I know some nice
Yeah,
ones, but no thank you. I'll just be your friend.
less
Like, how
drama.
much would you pay? Yeah, how much would you pay not to have some of these life dramas that upend what your lovely plans that you had made?
Yes,
has been,
indeed.
yes, well, this has been awesome. I thank you very much. And I thank everybody for tuning in. And I hope you guys all check out my data diary. Let me show it once again for the YouTube people. There it is, tiny little thing in this nice little box. You can probably hang it on your keychain. I don't know.
You can. Yes.
I have to fill it. I have to start filling it up, but this requires using the hubby as well. So
Yes.
I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fading Memories is also available wherever you get your favorite podcasts.